The valley woke slowly, the way it always did, with pale light sliding over fences and dust resting softly on the ground. Mornings there were quiet enough to hear your own breathing. Even the wind moved carefully, as if it respected the weight of memories settled into the land. Everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew the story of the widowed cowboy who lived at the edge of the valley with 3 children and a house that never quite felt finished. When she arrived, no one expected much. They had sent her quietly, without ceremony. A single truck stopped near the dirt road, and she stepped down with one worn suitcase and a careful look in her eyes. People watched from porches and behind curtains. Some shook their heads. Some whispered. They believed she would last a week, maybe less. Others thought she would leave before the first sunset. The cowboy did not meet her at the gate. He was inside the barn, finishing his morning work. Grief had changed him, turning his movements steady but distant, like a man always listening for something that would never answer back. When he finally saw her standing near the fence, he felt no hope, only responsibility. Another person passing through. Another reminder that life kept moving while his heart stayed still. The children watched from the doorway. The oldest stood stiff, already used to being too strong. The middle child held back, eyes full of questions. The youngest clutched a small toy, unsure whether to hide or wave. They had learned not to expect much from adults. Adults came with promises and left with excuses. The first day passed quietly. She unpacked without asking where things belonged. She listened more than she spoke. At dinner, she did not push conversation. She served food, cleaned gently, and thanked them for letting her stay. That night, the valley slept as it always had, unchanged and unconcerned. By the second day, people began noticing small things. The children were up earlier than usual, washed and dressed without being told. The kitchen smelled warm, not rushed. Bread baked slowly, the kind that filled rooms with comfort instead of noise. The cowboy noticed, but he said nothing. He had learned that noticing led to disappointment. Midweek brought rain. It softened the dust and darkened the soul. Inside the house, she sat with the children at the table, teaching them letters and stories, not as lessons but as shared moments. When the youngest grew tired, she carried them without asking permission, rocking gently near the window. The child did not resist. That alone unsettled the valley. By the 4th day, the shock had begun. She repaired a loose fence board without being asked. She washed work shirts and mended a torn sleeve the way his wife once had, with patience instead of haste. When the cowboy injured his hand slightly on a rusted nail, she cleaned it silently, her touch careful, respectful, never crossing lines he hadn't invited. It felt something unfamiliar then. Not love. Not hope. Something quieter. Relief. The children laughed that evening. It surprised even them. The sound floated out of the house and across the fields, carried by the cooling air. Neighbors paused their work, listening. Laughter had not lived there for a long time. Still, the cowboy remained guarded. He had learned that calm could be temporary. That kindness could leave without warning. At night, after the house grew quiet, he sat alone on the porch, staring at the stars, measuring how much it would hurt when she eventually walked away. The gentle twist came on the 6th day. The youngest woke crying from a nightmare, calling for a mother they barely remembered. Before the cowboy could reach the room, she was already there. She did not hush the child or rush them back to sleep. She sat on the floor, holding them close, letting the tears come and pass like a storm that needed room to move. When the cowboy stood in the doorway, unseen, he heard her whisper something simple. "I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm just here." Those words stayed with him. The next morning, the valley felt different. The children ran ahead of him toward the fence, eager to show him something they had planted with her the day before. Small seeds, barely visible, tucked into the soil behind the house. She stood back, watching them with a quiet smile, as if their joy was enough. That afternoon, neighbors finally spoke to her. Not with suspicion, but curiosity. She answered kindly, never defending herself, never explaining her purpose. She listened to their stories the way she listened to the children, without trying to fix anything. By the end of the week, no one could deny it. She had not come to take anything. She had come to give time. On the seventh evening, the cowboy sat across from her at the table after the children had gone to sleep. The house felt fuller, warmer, but not crowded. He thanked her, awkwardly, unsure how to say more. She nodded, understanding the limits of his words. "I wasn't sent here to stay forever," she said gently. "But I wasn't sent to leave quickly either." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and saw not a solution, not a replacement, but a presence. Someone who respected the past without living inside it. Outside, the valley settled into dusk. The fences stood straighter. The house held light longer. And for the first time in a long while, the cowboy did not feel like the world was waiting for him to fail. The children slept peacefully that night. The valley whispered its approval in the quiet way it always did, through steady winds and open skies. And though no one said it out loud, everyone knew something had shifted. Not dramatically. Not loudly. But enough to change everything. And for now, that was more than enough.